Join Marty Johnson, the holistic health practitioner and founder of Total Health Nutrition Center in Menominee Falls, Wisconsin, as he delivers these podcasts to enlighten you and give you hope that there are health solutions to conditions that seem difficult to resolve, or even better answers than a medical approach of prescribing a chemical drug, which most times is nothing more than a Band-Aid fix, rather than getting to the root cause of your problem. The mission of the Total Health podcast is to provide the education and support that will lead to transforming people's healths so they can live a much more efficient, productive, and happier life the way God intended it to be. Join him now for his latest podcast.
Okay, today we're going to talk about proteins. And the first thing I want to mention about proteins is that your body breaks down proteins into amino acids. And there's 21 amino acids needed by humans that can form proteins, or basically that make up proteins in general. And the body has to break those break down proteins so that you can get the amino acids from those foods. Out of the 21, there is actually 9 essential amino acids, meaning that your body cannot synthesize these and they have to come from your diet. So many people are actually deficient in proteins in general and without really realizing it. And that really can play out as maybe injuries that don't heal as well, or brittle bones over time with protein deficiency, nails that are less healthy, or hair. Menopausal women or elderly people may have more trouble with their muscle density, or noticing more flabbiness, because really the more muscle density you have, the better your metabolism can work. Or even it can affect the immune system, causing more frequent colds, either in children or adults. But low-level protein often gets overlooked by the medical doctors and often can be problematic to one's health long before signs of it really shows up on blood work. So blood markers for protein would be total protein, albumin, and albumin globulin ratios. So that might show up on a blood test as AG ratios. And albumin and globulin are really 2 proteins that are made in the liver. So not getting enough proteins may also even affect hormone production, so having lower hormone function or hormone levels, or a greater risk of disease even, or less efficient organ function. So a lot of times we don't think about protein as being, it can potentially affecting the body in so many different ways, but it certainly can. Going back to the essential amino acids, really these are fundamental building blocks necessary for practically every system within the body. So if you're deficient in even one of these amino acids, your body cannot make them because they're essential, like we had mentioned. So even just missing one of these essential amino acids and being out of balance with the other ones can start to cause different health issues. So many people know that protein is essential for optimum health, but most assume that they're getting enough in their diet. And it is true, there is a lot of good quality protein sources like eggs, meat, fish, nuts, but some of the protein in the food, or much of the protein in the food, I should say, is not necessarily converted into its full amount. So in other words, if you have 20 grams of protein in, let's say, in a chicken breast or a serving of chicken that you have on your plate, if there's 20 grams there on your plate, you're not going to assimilate all of that or utilize all of that protein. So a good example is there's going to be a certain amount of waste byproduct that is excreted out the body or stored as additional calories. So like egg protein is considered one of the highest bioavailable proteins available, and that actually will absorb at about a 48% rate. So egg protein is 48%, which leaves 52% nitrogen waste stored as calories. Meat, poultry, and fish actually have about a 32% absorption rate, leaving 68% nitrogen waste stored as calories. And then we get into certain whey protein powders or whey proteins, soy protein, nuts and seeds. These actually can absorb as low as 18 to 20%, leaving approximately 84 to 86% nitrogen waste stored as calories. So even when we're eating these foods, we have to be aware that, hey, we have to have enough consumption to actually get the proper amino acid levels out of it because of the rate at which we actually utilize them. The other factor that can affect maybe protein deficiency would be inefficient digestive system. So what I've observed over many years in clinical practice in holistic medicine is that a lot of people can be lower in their hydrochloric acid production. So even though, on the contrary, we think of a lot of Americans having over-acidic systems where they have heartburn, and a lot of medications are sold for reflux or heartburn. The reality of it is that a lot of these situations are actually caused from low hydrochloric acid production. And why would your hydrochloric acid production be low? For what reason would that be? Well, one of the reasons is that the parietal cells and the stomach lining that produce hydrochloric acid, they can get overloaded with toxins. So if a person's eating foods that are not as clean or have pesticides on them over many years, these cells can reduce their function and produce less hydrochloric acid. Also, stress and the use of antacids, as well as other sicknesses, can affect the digestive system over time and diminish that production. And this hydrochloric acid is needed to break down proteins, but if a person's low in hydrochloric acid, why would they have reflux? Well, it's because they're not breaking down their proteins properly, so the proteins are sitting in the stomach longer, and sometimes people will even observe they feel like a heavier stomach after their meal for longer than they should, or just more bloating. And a lot of times the protein, basically what's happening is it's just rancifying and creating rancid acids that are coming up. And then medically, a lot of times people are prescribed an antacid, which does help their symptoms. But the problem is that now you're suppressing more hydrochloric acid and just kind of perpetuating the actual original problem. And this all relates to a potential protein or even nutrient deficiency due to the actual digestive system not being as efficient. That's why I like to say, instead of you are what you eat, you are what you digest. So you can be actually even eating pretty well, but if you're not breaking down those nutrients and getting them from the food, it's not going to do you a lot of good. When it comes to diet, so those are two factors that can be involved in protein deficiency. When it comes to the diet, what we want to look at is actually factors that are foods that are going to deliver complete proteins that have all of these 9 amino acids in them. So foods, I already mentioned some of those foods really, or most of them, such as eggs, poultry, beef, fish, and dairy are all complete proteins. So as we mentioned earlier, even if you're getting these complete proteins in, you're not utilizing 100% of them. In the plant category, such as nuts, seeds, soy proteins, those are absorbed at a much lower rate, but some of those plant-based proteins, or most of them, are actually incomplete proteins. So they don't have all 9 essential amino acids. Actually, from the plant arena, there's a grain called quinoa, Quinoa, and soy that are complete. But one of the issues that we have with soy is that it actually has molecules in it that have an estrogenic effect, which means that it can actually elevate, they're called phytoestrogens coming from plants, and they can elevate estrogen in the body. And unfortunately, because of different chemicals that actually mimic estrogens in the body already that are sprayed onto food and in our environment, a lot of people are estrogen dominant. So we want to be careful with the ingestion of too much soy. In cultures that use soy, most cultures like in Asia and China, I think China and Japan, they actually ferment the soy. So the enzymes in the fermentation process actually break it down and take away some of these concerns that we have with soy. So some forms of soy could be okay if they're fermented, but some of the higher protein sources of these plant-based proteins would be some of the better ones, at least, would be almonds, pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, pistachios, flax seeds, sesame seeds, and chia seeds. These are, of course, lower in protein content than some of the animal proteins, and they will equate into a higher calorie source, but they're not complete, but they're still good sources of protein. When it comes to like the lentil and bean family, they can also be another source of incomplete protein, but still a valid source to at least get some of the protein from. Black lentils, split peas, navy beans, chickpeas, black beans, and kidney beans, those would be some of the better sources in that family of foods. So that just kind of gives you a general idea of different foods that would contain proteins. A good general rule for protein intake, if you're physically active, you might want to be shooting to get about half of your body weight in grams of protein per day, which would be a good thing to shoot for. For a sedentary person, another calculation that you could use for someone not as active, 0.4 grams per pound of body weight. So a person weighing 150 pounds, you could just do the calculation, 0.4 times 150, so it's like 60 grams of protein. So that kind of gives you a general sense of, things to be looking at and shooting for in that respect. So really, in the last 30 years working with people in clinical nutrition, I've observed people you observe different things when it comes to this whole protein issue. And what I've found is that even when we work with people on certain diets, or people that in general will say, I tend to I just crave food all the time. It's not necessarily even bad food, but they're just hungry often. Many times I find that when we get the right amount of the essential amino acids in, whether that's through correcting their digestion or making sure they're getting enough of the proper proteins in, or sometimes we might even put them on very specialized supplements. One of them actually that I've come across, Dr. Minkoff has developed an amino acid product that is patented. He actually was awarded a patent on developing this amino acid to be at a 99% usable rate or bioavailable rate, which is unheard of for amino acids. I mean, a lot of even amino acid supplements might absorb in the 30 to 40% range, but at 99%, getting into the body many times as quick as between 30 and 40 minutes, in the body and being utilized. So when we get people on products like this, or make the other corrections, we've noticed that a lot of these cravings start to settle down. Blood sugar starts to balance out more, and then also hair and skin and nail issues, where normally I had always thought, well, we're looking at more of the minerals and the calcium and the biotin and certain B vitamins, which is all good, and we should look at that, and that could be potential problems if you're deficient in those for your nails and your skin and your hair. But if those typical types of nutrients or products aren't working, what I'm finding is that actually getting people the right amount of protein in their system and getting these essential amino acids in, sometimes even from this product called Perfect Aminos, all of a sudden the nails will start improving and the hair will improve, muscle tone improves, less flabbiness, better energy, a lot of things start to come in line. So pretty interesting, really, even up until recent days, I'm still observing different aspects of this in my practice that are even fascinating to me that I hadn't looked at as close in the past. So really, because of all these challenges that we talked about today, getting sufficient protein utilization, we find is more important than what we even realized for people, just due to all the challenges that are going on. And really, our clinical team has searched extensively to find techniques and specialized products to balance the digestive system and feed the body the nutrients each individual system is looking for. And that's kind of the key, is every person is different. So we have to make sure that we're working with a person really in looking at their exact issues and what's happened over time, kind of like peeling back an onion, if you will. There's a lot of different layers that might have built up of imbalance that we need to rebalance. And then, once we can bring a person's body chemistry back into balance, and then the body starts to respond like it should. So if you're looking to get some help on making sure you're doing the right things and that these body systems are working, please give our office a call. We're happy to help and to work with people to achieve better vitality and health. Our phone number is 262-251-2929, or you can go to our website. That's Total Health Inc., totalhealthinc.com. And thank you very much for listening. We'll look forward to talking on the next podcast.
Thanks for joining us today on the Total Health Podcast. If you'd like more information about how Total Health can transform your health, check them out. They would love to set up a free consultation with you over the phone. Call them at 262-251-2929 to make that appointment. Otherwise, you can check them out on the web at www.totalhealthinc.com.